something. There comes a day in every person's life when a painful truth knocks on the door of their soul. Not with noise, not with violence, but with silence. The silence of unanswered messages, the silence of one-sided effort, something. The silence of realizing that the people you kept choosing had already stopped choosing you. And if you ignore that silence long enough, it will become your prison. Today, something. You are about to discover why chasing people who ignore you is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself, and why the moment you stop running after them is the moment your real power begins. There is a hidden law that governs every human relationship, something. Few ever recognize it because they are too busy begging for affection, proving their worth, or waiting for someone to finally appreciate them. They believe persistence creates love. They believe sacrifice earns loyalty. They believe if they become patient enough, something, kind enough, useful enough, eventually the other person will wake up and see their value. But life rarely rewards desperation. The world has a strange way of responding to those who abandon themselves for the approval of others. Something. Every step you take towards someone who has already turned away often pushes them another step farther from you. Not because they are evil, but because human nature rarely treasures what never stops offering itself. Value is recognized where there are boundaries. Something. Respect grows where there is self-respect. Yet countless people spend years trying to convince someone to care. Look carefully at your own life. How many conversations have you carried alone? How many apologies have you made for mistakes you never committed? Something. How many nights have you spent wondering what changed while the other person slept peacefully, unaware that they occupied every corner of your thoughts? The greatest tragedy is not that someone ignored you. The greatest tragedy is that in trying to keep them, something, you began ignoring yourself. Every unanswered call becomes another question about your worth. Every delayed reply becomes another excuse you invent on their behalf. Every broken promise becomes another burden you convince yourself to carry. Slowly, almost invisibly, something. Your identity becomes attached to someone else's attention. You no longer wake up asking what brings you peace. You wake up asking whether they noticed you. This is how people surrender their freedom without ever realizing they have become prisoners. Something. The human soul was never designed to survive on borrowed validation. It was created to stand firmly even when applause disappears. Yet society teaches the opposite. It tells you to fight for everyone, hold on to everyone, never give up on people. Something. While those ideas sound noble, they often become dangerous when directed toward those who have already decided your place in their lives. You cannot negotiate genuine interest. You cannot persuade authentic respect. Something. You cannot manufacture love through relentless effort. Some doors are not locked because you lack the right key. They are locked because they were never meant to open for you. Accepting this truth requires enormous courage. Most people refuse to face it. Instead, something. They become emotional collectors of rejection. They save old conversations, replay forgotten memories, analyze every word meech for hidden meanings where none exist. They become detectives investigating a crime that never happened. Something. Simply because they cannot accept the obvious answer. Sometimes silence is the answer. Sometimes distance is the answer. Sometimes indifference speaks louder than honesty ever could. Something. The wise person does not waste years translating what actions have already made perfectly clear. Observe nature. The sun never begs the earth to admire its light. The ocean never chases the rivers that flow into it. Mountains never move to prove their greatness. Something. Everything powerful remains rooted in its own existence. Only what fears its own value constantly seeks confirmation from outside itself. Ask yourself a difficult question. Who were you before you needed someone's approval to feel complete? Something. There was once a version of you that laughed freely, dreamed boldly, walked confidently, cried without permission, smiled without waiting for someone else's recognition. That person still exists, buried beneath disappointment. Something. Hidden beneath emotional exhaustion, covered by years of chasing people who never intended to walk beside you. Every pursuit has a cost. When you chase someone who ignores you, you are not merely spending time, you are spending life itself. Minutes become hours. Something. Hours become months. Months become years. One day you wake up wondering where your youth disappeared. It vanished while you waited outside doors that were never going to open. The most dangerous addiction is not money. It is not comfort. It is not success. Something. It is the addiction to being chosen by someone who has already chosen someone else, or worse, chosen no one at all. This addiction disguises itself as hope. It whispers maybe tomorrow. It says maybe if I change. Something. It promises that one more effort will finally produce the miracle you have imagined. But hope detached from reality becomes self-destruction. There's a sacred difference between perseverance and attachment. Perseverance builds your destiny. Attachment destroys your dignity. Never confuse the two. You were not created to spend your existence convincing people to recognize what they deliberately overlook. Your value does not increase because someone finally notices it. Gold remains gold even when buried beneath the earth. Diamonds remain precious before anyone discovers them. Likewise, your worth existed long before someone's attention arrived, and it will continue long after their absence no longer hurts. The moment you stop chasing is not the moment you lose. It is the moment you recover what you almost sacrificed forever. Your peace, your confidence, your identity, your future. There is extraordinary power in walking away without hatred, without revenge, without dramatic speeches, without trying to make someone regret losing you. Because true strength does not seek witnesses. It simply moves forward. People often imagine that silence after rejection means weakness. In reality, silence is often the loudest declaration of self-respect. When you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, your energy returns. There is a kind of pain that does not announce itself with shouting or conflict. It arrives quietly. It sits beside you while you stare at your phone, waiting for a message that never comes. It lingers after conversations that feel strangely one-sided, after invitations that are never returned, after moments when you realize you are always the one reaching out first. The deepest wounds are often delivered in silence because silence forces the mind to invent explanations. It convinces you that perhaps they are busy, perhaps they forgot, perhaps tomorrow will be different. Every excuse becomes another thread that ties you to someone who has already loosened their grip on you. Most people are not broken by rejection itself. They are broken by refusing to recognize it. They continue investing where nothing is growing. They continue watering empty soil, believing that persistence alone can produce a harvest. But reality has its own language, and that language is expressed more through actions than promises. When someone consistently ignores your presence, delays every response, avoids every opportunity to connect, or only remembers you when it benefits them, they are communicating something that words often hide. Their silence has already delivered the answer your heart refuses to accept. Human nature struggles against uncomfortable truth. The mind would rather cling to false hope than embrace painful certainty. Hope feels warm. It whispers that one more effort might change everything. It tells you to wait a little longer, to be a little more patient, to become a little more understanding. Yet there is a dangerous difference between hope and denial. Hope inspires growth when both people move toward each other. Denial traps you when only one person continues walking, while the other has already chosen a different direction. Pay close attention to the energy you spend trying to explain another person's behavior. Every unanswered message becomes a mystery you desperately try to solve. You replay conversations in your mind, searching for mistakes you may have made. You analyze every word, every pause, every expression. You become both the investigator and the accused, conducting endless trials inside your own thoughts. Meanwhile, the person occupying your mind may not be thinking about you at all. This imbalance slowly steals something more valuable than your time. It steals your peace. The tragedy is not that someone failed to appreciate you. The tragedy begins when their indifference convinces you to question your own worth. You start measuring yourself through their attention. A delayed response feels like evidence that you are not important. A forgotten promise feels like proof that you are not enough. The opinions of another person quietly become the judge of your identity. This is how emotional dependence grows. It rarely begins with love. It begins with uncertainty. Silence has a remarkable ability to reveal what words attempt to conceal. Anyone can promise loyalty. Anyone can claim they care. Anyone can offer beautiful explanations when confronted. But consistent behavior is impossible to fake forever. Interest creates effort. Respect creates consistency. Genuine affection creates presence. When those qualities disappear repeatedly, you are witnessing truth without needing to hear it spoken aloud. There are people who remain emotionally attached to memories instead of reality. They remember how someone treated them months ago and refuse to acknowledge how they are treated today. They keep chasing an old version of a relationship that no longer exists. Memories become chains because they convince you that what once was must surely return. But life never asks you to live in yesterday. It demands that you confront today exactly as it is, not as you wish it could become. One of the hardest lessons any person learns is that not every relationship is meant to continue. Some people enter your life for a season, not a lifetime. Their departure is not always dramatic. Sometimes it happens quietly, conversation by conversation, excuse by excuse, until one day you realize you are the only one still holding on. Acceptance feels cruel because it forces you to release the future you imagine. Yet refusing acceptance only prolongs suffering that reality has already settled. The fear of being ignored often drives people to become louder, more available, more accommodating. They believe increasing their effort will restore the connection. Instead, they slowly abandon their own dignity. They begin apologizing for existing. They hesitate before expressing their needs. They become grateful for scraps of attention that should never have satisfied them in the first place. What once resembled affection gradually transforms into emotional survival. The quiet rejection you refuse to accept shapes your decisions in ways you barely notice. It influences where you spend your energy, how you value your time, and what you believe you deserve. Instead of investing in your own growth, you invest in winning back someone else's interest. Instead of building your future, you spend your days trying to repair what another person has already left behind. Every moment spent chasing clarity from someone committed to distance is a moment stolen from the life waiting for your attention. The most powerful people are not those who never experienced rejection. They are those who recognize it early enough to protect their peace. They understand that acceptance is not surrender. It is wisdom. It is the courage to stop arguing with reality. It is the decision to believe consistent actions over comforting fantasies. It is choosing self-respect over endless explanation, choosing truth over illusion, and choosing a life guided by clarity instead of emotional desperation. There is a silent bargain many people make without ever realizing it. They trade pieces of their self-worth for moments of someone else's attention. At first, the exchange seems harmless. You send one extra message. You make one more excuse for their absence. You tell yourself they are simply overwhelmed, distracted, or dealing with something you cannot see. But what begins as patience slowly transforms into dependence. You stop asking whether they deserve your effort and start wondering how you can deserve theirs. That is the moment the chase begins, and with every step forward, your confidence takes a step backward. The human heart has an extraordinary ability to cling to possibility even when reality is already spoken. It prefers imagined futures over uncomfortable truths. It convinces itself that one more conversation, one more act of kindness, one more sacrifice will finally awaken appreciation in someone who has repeatedly chosen indifference. Yet the more desperately you pursue what continuously moves away from you, the more invisible your own value becomes, not only to them, but to yourself. Self-worth is not destroyed in a single dramatic event. It erodes quietly through repetition. Every ignored message whispers that you should try harder. Every canceled plan persuades you to lower your expectations. Every unanswered effort teaches your mind that receiving the bare minimum should feel like a privilege instead of a warning. Little by little, your standards begin to disappear. What once would have offended you becomes acceptable. What once would have made you walk away becomes something you tolerate. This is how dignity fades, not through force, but through gradual compromise. There is a dangerous illusion that effort alone can repair every relationship. While commitment is necessary in healthy connections, effort cannot replace mutual desire. You can build a bridge only if someone is willing to meet you from the other side. Otherwise, you are simply constructing a road into emptiness. No amount of devotion can create affection where none exists. No amount of loyalty can manufacture respect in someone who has already decided not to value it. Observe how your mind behaves when you become emotionally attached to someone who continually ignores you. Instead of celebrating your own achievements, you wait for their approval. Instead of enjoying peaceful moments, you search for signs that they might finally notice you. Your emotional climate begins changing according to their behavior. If they reply, you feel relief. If they disappear, anxiety returns. Your happiness no longer belongs to you. It has been placed into the hands of someone who may not even realize they are holding it. This is one of the greatest dangers of chasing people. You surrender control over your emotional life. Every decision they make becomes capable of shaking your confidence. Every silence becomes an invitation for self-doubt. You begin asking questions that slowly poison your identity. Am I interesting enough? Am I attractive enough? Did I say something wrong? Should I become someone different? These questions rarely lead to truth. They lead to endless insecurity because they assume your worth depends upon another person's attention. The tragedy is that people often become smaller while trying to be loved. They hide opinions to avoid conflict. They suppress their needs to avoid rejection. They agree with things they secretly dislike. They reshape their personality until they no longer recognize themselves. The irony is painful. They chase acceptance by abandoning abandoning the very qualities that make them unique. In trying to keep someone else's interest, they lose their own identity. Respect cannot survive where desperation takes control. Human beings naturally recognize confidence rooted in self-respect. When someone consistently communicates that they will accept neglect, excuses, and inconsistency without consequence, they unintentionally teach others how little they value themselves. This is not because people are naturally cruel. It is because boundaries define value. The absence of boundaries quietly announces that anything is acceptable. Many people mistake emotional endurance for strength. They believe staying despite constant disappointment proves loyalty. They wear their suffering like a badge of honor, convincing themselves that love requires endless sacrifice. But wisdom teaches a different lesson. There is a profound difference between enduring temporary hardship together and repeatedly accepting treatment that diminishes your spirit. One builds relationships, the other destroys the person trying to preserve them. Imagine carrying a container meant to hold clean water. Every day, someone drills another small hole into its surface. At first, the damage seems insignificant. You barely notice the loss. But over time, the container empties faster than you can refill it. Chasing people who ignore you works the same way. Every unanswered effort creates another opening through which confidence escapes. Eventually, you wonder why you feel exhausted even though you have done everything possible. The answer is simple. You have spent your emotional energy trying to earn something that should have been freely given. There is a powerful freedom that arrives when you stop measuring your value through another person's response. You begin noticing how much life exists beyond the narrow hallway of constant validation. Your thoughts become clearer because they are no longer consumed by guessing games. Your time becomes meaningful because it is invested in growth instead of pursuit. Your confidence begins returning because it is no longer tied to someone else's unpredictable behavior. The greatest transformation does not happen when the person who ignored you suddenly decides to care. It happens when their attention is no longer necessary for your peace. The endless need to prove yourself disappears. The exhausting habit of explaining your worth comes to an end. You recognize that genuine relationships never require you to negotiate your value, reduce your standards, or compete for basic respect. You stop running after people who continuously look away because you finally understand that every step spent chasing them has always been a step taken away from yourself. Human behavior is rarely as complicated as people make it appear. Beneath every relationship, every conversation, and every emotional attachment lies a simple force that quietly shapes the way people respond to one another. It is the force of attention. Wherever attention flows, energy follows. Wherever energy follows, value is created. Yet countless people spend their lives pouring attention into those who have already decided not to return it, never realizing they are participating in an invisible exchange where they continually give away what is most precious while receiving almost nothing in return. Attention is not merely where your eyes look. It is where your thoughts live. It is what occupies your mornings before you rise and your nights before you sleep. It determines what grows inside your mind because whatever receives repeated attention eventually becomes emotionally significant. This is why one indifferent person can begin to dominate your entire emotional world. Not because they possess extraordinary power, but because you have handed them extraordinary space within your own consciousness. The mind has a peculiar habit of magnifying what it cannot fully possess. When someone offers inconsistent affection, unpredictable responses, or occasional moments of warmth followed by long periods of silence, the brain becomes trapped in uncertainty. Instead of losing interest, it often becomes more invested. Uncertainty creates obsession because the mind desperately seeks resolution. It keeps asking the same questions. Why did they suddenly change? What are they thinking? What can I do differently? Every unanswered question strengthens the emotional attachment instead of weakening it. This is one of the hidden psychological traps that so many people mistake for love. They believe the intensity of their emotions proves the depth of the relationship. In reality, much of that intensity is produced by uncertainty rather than connection. Genuine respect creates stability. Genuine affection creates consistency. Genuine care reduces confusion instead of feeding it. When someone truly values your presence, they do not leave you constantly guessing where you stand. Respect follows a different path than attention. Attention can be given for countless reasons. Someone may notice you because you are useful, entertaining, available, or convenient. Respect is different. Respect is built through consistency, character, and boundaries. It grows when people recognize that your time, energy, and dignity are not endlessly available to anyone who chooses to ignore them. The unfortunate reality is that many people pursue attention while neglecting respect, believing they are chasing the same thing when they are entirely different. Observe how people often behave when they fear losing someone's interest. They become excessively available. They answer immediately. They cancel their own plans without hesitation. They rearrange their priorities around another person's schedule. They believe this proves devotion. Yet psychology often reveals the opposite effect. When someone continually sacrifices their own life to accommodate another, they unintentionally communicate that their own time carries little value. Human beings naturally assign importance to what appears scarce and protected. What is constantly available is often taken for granted. This does not mean you should become cold or manipulative. It means you must recognize the silent language that behavior speaks. Every action communicates something about how you perceive yourself. When you repeatedly tolerate disrespect without consequence, people receive an unspoken message that such treatment is acceptable. When you consistently abandon your own needs to satisfy others, they unconsciously learn that your boundaries can always be moved. Respect cannot survive where self-respect is continually surrendered. There is another hidden principle few people notice. Those who constantly seek attention eventually become controlled by the people from whom they seek it. The moment your emotional state depends on someone else's approval, they gain influence over your peace without ever asking for it. A delayed response ruins your day. A brief compliment lifts your mood. A forgotten message leaves you anxious. Your emotional stability rises and falls according to someone else's choices. This is not connection. It is quiet dependency disguised as affection. People often assume that confidence is loud, dramatic, or intimidating. True confidence is much quieter. It does not beg to be noticed because it does not rely on constant recognition. It does not chase because it understands that value is not created through pursuit. It knows that genuine relationships develop through mutual investment rather than relentless persuasion. A confident person may desire companionship, appreciation, and love, but they never confuse desire with necessity. Their identity remains intact even when someone chooses to walk away. One of the greatest misunderstandings about respect is the belief that kindness alone creates it. Kindness is essential, but kindness without boundaries often becomes permission for others to take without giving. Compassion without self-respect slowly transforms into self-neglect. Generosity without wisdom invites exploitation. The healthiest relationships are not built upon endless sacrifice from one person. They are built upon balanced effort where both individuals willingly contribute because they recognize each other's value. Consider the people who naturally command respect wherever they go. They are not always the loudest or the most talented. Often they possess a quiet certainty about who they are. They do not constantly explain themselves. They do not chase validation from every room they enter. They listen more than they speak. They choose carefully where their attention goes because they understand that attention is one of the most expensive currencies a human being possesses. Once spent, it can never be recovered. Every moment you spend trying to force someone to recognize your worth is a moment stolen from building a life that naturally reflects it. Instead of strengthening your character, you strengthen your attachment. Instead of investing in your purpose, you invest in uncertainty. The hidden psychology is simple yet profound. The more your attention becomes imprisoned by those who refuse to value it, the less respect you cultivate within yourself. But the moment your attention returns to your own growth, your own discipline, and your own peace, respect begins growing from the inside outward, no longer dependent on applause, approval, or the unpredictable decisions of people who never possessed the authority to define your worth. There is a moment in every person's life that separates who they were from who they are becoming. It is not marked by applause, celebration, or dramatic confrontation. It happens in complete silence. It is the instant you decide to stop chasing someone who has been teaching you through their actions that your presence is optional. Nothing changes on the outside at first. The world continues moving exactly as before. Yet inside you, something ancient awakens. A forgotten strength begins to breathe again because the energy once wasted on pursuit finally starts returning to its rightful owner. Walking away is often misunderstood. Many believe it is an act of anger, revenge, or wounded pride. They imagine that leaving means giving up or admitting defeat. But true departure has nothing to do with resentment. It is one of the purest acts of self-respect a human being can practice. It is the quiet recognition that your peace is too valuable to be exchanged for uncertainty. certainty. It is the wisdom to understand that no relationship requiring you to constantly prove your worth can ever become a place of genuine rest. The greatest chains are rarely made of iron. They are made of hope that refuses to face reality. Hope convinces you to remain where your spirit is slowly being drained. It whispers that tomorrow will finally be different. It persuades you to endure one more disappointment, one more excuse, one more unanswered message. While hope has the power to sustain people through difficult seasons, misplaced hope becomes a prison. It keeps you emotionally attached to possibilities that exist only inside your imagination, while reality quietly continues unfolding in a different direction. There is extraordinary freedom in accepting what another person's actions have already revealed. Acceptance does not erase pain, but it removes confusion. It ends the exhausting habit of searching for hidden meanings behind obvious behavior. It allows you to stop interpreting silence as mystery and begin recognizing it as information. Every consistent action tells a story. Every repeated choice reveals priority. The person who continually makes space for you communicates care. The person who continually leaves you waiting communicates something equally important. Wisdom is learning to believe behavior before believing excuses. Many people fear walking away because they believe they will lose something irreplaceable. They imagine that the person they leave behind was their only chance for happiness, their only source of love, their only opportunity for connection. This belief is born from scarcity, not truth. A mind trapped in emotional dependence begins exaggerating the importance of those who ignore it. It forgets how vast life truly is. It forgets how many doors remain unopened because all attention has been focused on the one that refuses to welcome you. Your power has never existed inside another person's approval. It has always existed within your ability to choose where your energy belongs. Every morning you wake up with a limited amount of emotional strength. You decide where it will be invested. If you spend it trying to earn attention from someone committed to withholding it, very little remains for your dreams, your purpose, your family, your health, or your future. The greatest loss is not that someone failed to appreciate you. The greatest loss is allowing their indifference to consume the resources that were meant to build your own life. Walking away requires a different kind of courage than chasing. Chasing is driven by emotion. Walking away is guided by discipline. Your heart may still remember old conversations, shared memories, and imagined futures. It may still long for explanations that never arrive. Yet discipline quietly reminds you that peace is more valuable than temporary comfort. It teaches you that longing is not evidence you should return. Missing someone does not always mean they belong in your life. Sometimes it simply means you are healing from an attachment that once felt permanent. One of the most remarkable transformations begins after you stop pursuing those who consistently overlook you. At first, the silence feels unfamiliar. Your mind reaches for old habits. You feel tempted to check whether they have noticed your absence. You wonder if they finally understand your value. But with every day you refuse to chase, another layer of emotional dependence begins dissolving. You gradually realize that much of your suffering was not caused by their rejection, but by your refusal to release what had already ended. There is quiet dignity in refusing to beg for what should be freely given. Respect loses its meaning the moment it must be negotiated. Love loses its beauty the moment it must be forced. Friendship loses its purpose the moment only one person continues carrying its weight. Healthy relationships are built upon mutual willingness, not endless persuasion. The moment you recognize this truth, your standards begin rising. You stop celebrating inconsistent effort as though it were extraordinary kindness. You stop accepting occasional attention as proof of genuine care. People often believe power means controlling others. They imagine strength is measured by influence, persuasion, or the ability to make someone return. But authentic power has always been something much quieter. It is the ability to remain faithful to your own values even when emotions urge you toward desperation. It is the capacity to protect your peace without hatred. It is choosing silence over unnecessary argument, distance over repeated disappointment, and clarity over endless emotional confusion. As you continue walking away, something unexpected begins happening. The parts of yourself that had been neglected slowly return. Your curiosity awakens again. Your confidence grows stronger because it is no longer dependent on unpredictable responses. Your creativity expands because your thoughts are no longer trapped inside endless analysis of someone else's behavior. You begin noticing opportunities that were invisible while your attention remained imprisoned by emotional pursuit. The path ahead becomes clearer not because every question has been answered, but because you no longer require every answer before moving forward. You understand that closure is not always something another person gives you. Often it is a decision you make within yourself. It is the quiet refusal to keep knocking on doors that have remained closed despite countless attempts. It is choosing your future over familiar disappointment, your dignity over temporary validation, and your inner peace over the exhausting pursuit of people who have already revealed through consistent action where they have chosen to place your place in their lives